Hey, it's Amir Bormand, and this is another episode of the Daily 10 from the Talent Tango. And here is Arash Bormand
Hello.
doing it again. So sometimes we're going to just talk about what's happening in the office. I mentioned that, we are obviously practitioners. We're in the depths of recruiting every day, and we see the good and the bad. Sometimes we want to just
And the
talk about,
ugly.
yeah, sometimes the ugly. And yeah, sometimes we just want to talk about what's happening in the office. It might resonate with you, depending on what you're doing or your hiring manager. Today, a little bit of a interesting twist to the story. So we
When is there not a twist?
there's a lot of twists, and we placed a candidate. Well, we got a candidate who accepted an offer, and this person wanted to go on an extended vacation out of the country. So they left, obviously very inaccessible to us, texting or calling in that case. And they have to go through an immigration process. They're transferring a visa, and we got an email saying, "Hey, this person hasn't sent any documentation in to get the visa done." Now we know also that this candidate was, really relaxed about everything, wasn't seemingly in a hurry, obviously was going back home. He's comfortable, he's settled in home. He wasn't sure if he was gonna stay a few weeks, whatever the story is. But now we're in a little bit of a, time crunch where, people need a response from him. Whether or not he came back on time, he's been kind of dark. And really where we're at is don't know if he's here yet. Don't know if he's not here yet. He could still be overseas. And his immigration might cause him a delay. Now, obviously, the concern for everyone is
He's not interested in the job anymore and he's not coming back
he
or
found something else.
yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of question
Yeah.
marks. So I think there's a lack of information that we have, the client has. So I think everybody's a little bit in the dark. So I'm sure everybody's gotten ghosted or is getting ghosted currently or even has ghosted. So it works all ways. So I
Well, I don't
think
even know if the problem is we don't even know if this guy's ghosting you, so he might
true.
just be just home with family, and he's like, the last thing on his mind is getting paperwork in, or maybe I don't know, maybe he doesn't even have, who knows? That's the wild card is, but so that's only one half of the impact. So obviously the recruiting team for the company there, they want this start to kick in because the manager
Sure.
obviously is expecting another head count, has started planning on it, might have not been interviewing other candidates potentially for the other role. So the ripple is pretty impactful because they might have already taken steps. Who knows? They might have had candidates that they were in flight with. They shut it
They've put
down.
some resources in play too, especially with the immigration lawyer and stuff like that. So they've been vested. They've put in their steps forward to move it along, and we're kind of in a holding pattern, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's tricky, and I mean, I think the whole ghosting thing, and again, I don't know if this particular candidate were in that situation. We're in a wild card situation, certainly, but I think when it comes to like candidates just falling off, I do think obviously it happens. I think it's probably always happened. It's just now because of email and accessibility, you think you just want that feedback. And I don't know. In his case, he is overseas, email still works. So I partially also then I'm trying to be practical and go, well, email's still available. I'm sure, unless he has a complete blackout and he's like, he's off the grid, he's hiking out someplace in a mountain where he has no
No
reception for
Wi-Fi.
months. I mean, to each their own, that might be how he's relaxing. But if he does have email accessibility, he's seen it, obviously it's a bad sign. But part of it is like, to me, I'm maybe a little bit old school, but if I've made the commitment that I'm doing something, like, hey, I am taking, and again, things happen where jobs come up and circumstance. I would have at least wanted to let someone know, hey, things have changed on my end. I apologize for this. You're not going to be happy with it, but I've got to just break the news to you. Rip the band-aid off, let someone know, because not knowing and finding out is far worse, I've learned, than knowing and just dealing.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, lack of absence of information, people assume, and it's never good. And I'm going to stick to that. I think in this particular case, um, the interaction with the candidate's also been very not aloof, but it just hasn't been as smooth as ideal. A lot of texting, doesn't really want to get on the phone. So there's been some, and maybe that's just personality, right? Some people don't wanna get influenced or whatever the case is. So I'm not sure what the drivers are. To your point, I think in today's technology world, there are little to no excuses not to be able to get back, in particular, when you're in a visa situation, right? So, to me, in all other faces, okay, cool, but this particular instance, there's a lot of, moving components, so not getting back is not a good sign, I guess.
Yeah, well, and again, I'd be curious because if I were to put myself in his shoes, maybe he got a fantastic. And again, I'm okay with him, you know, starting work someplace else. I'm okay with but I think again, I think really the net of it is there's just, and again, you have to understand we're in a sales process. We're sales oriented, so for us, communication is really important. Other roles, that confrontation might not be comfortable. You might just not want to have it. You don't feel like you're gonna have to email piss somebody off. You're gonna want to avoid it. And I think a lot of people who ghost, right? I think a lot of it is they just don't want to have to deal with
Conflict?
the conflict. They don't want to have to be the bad guy, send bad person, send the email and hey, I'm not interested. I'm pulling out of the interview process. I'm leaving this. I'm not buying it. Whatever it is, I think people don't like the confrontation because we can all
Is it
sit
that people don't
behind.
like the confrontation or the reason? Because if he emailed, "I won the lotto," people would be like they
No,
totally would
I'm talking
accept it,
about
right?
the people who are ghosting, right? So most of society now is handled behind a keyboard or a screen. Like,
Sure.
we don't really have to call people. You don't have to leave your house if you don't want to. You could probably accomplish almost everything you want avoiding people. So I'm wondering if what we're kind of seeing is that it's not that people are ghosting, the people are comfortable being disconnected from others. So in that sense, they're like, well, they don't see me as long if I just drop off the face of the earth, who cares? I don't have a relationship. I have nothing vested. Yeah, they interviewed me. Yeah, there was a process, but do I owe them anything? And I think we're seeing the ghosting happen more in other facets. I don't think it's just relegated to recruiting. So I think maybe I mean, I'm not a psychologist, or a sociologist to know this, but I mean, there might be a correlation of some kind that ties in how people are interacting with technology and real human contact and how they're dealing with these things to avoid it's much easier to text somebody and break up with them than have to do it face to face.
That's definitely a
Way
lot harder.
harder. So if you're going to tell somebody I'm not taking your job after a month and a half, you know, what's the best way? Well, just never contact them again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, that's the short-sighted view, right? I think everybody would probably agree that it's better for everybody involved the long run just to be open and honest and just, kinda communicate even if it's something somebody doesn't wanna hear. But to your point, I think it's increasingly difficult for people to break bad news, right? Because, like you said, they don't wanna be the bad guy, and I think it's not taking it personally. If a better opportunity came up, can I fault the guy? No. I mean, he needs to take care of himself and do what he thinks is best for him. And that's just the lack of communication. I think that is more upsetting to people, not necessarily the reasoning behind what it is. You're ghosting. There must be something that's come up. So
Yeah, and I think sometimes because the expectation on the other side, the person who's waiting for information is that there's so many touch points and so much accessibility that there's expectation that you should be able to respond quickly. Again, sometimes we're making leaps and bounds of assumptions of
sure.
why. He could literally be, camping on a cave for the last month. Who knows? Like, we didn't ask him, "Well, were you particular you gonna have accessibility the whole time?" He's on, he's visiting family. He might have taken a side excursion. He doesn't have roaming on his phone there. Who knows? But the client is obviously going, there's a hi-fi Wi-Fi hotspot at a coffee shop. Check your email. Like that's their expectation because their day is going on. This guy's off the grid interested or not, he might or might not check email. So, I'm a big fan of, there needs to be some slowing of the pace of expectation, especially when you know the dynamics.
Right.
And he might pop on the grid next week and go, "Hey guys, sorry I missed it," or "Hey guys," or he'll never respond, or he'll be like, "Hey, completely." I'll start a month later because I had something come up and who knows. But to me, some of those expectations just rise because people think we're all sitting on our phone all the time and I should be responding when, maybe I'm doing something else and I just don't want to. And he's not ghosting.
I think that's
He might be
safe to
ghosting.
say
I'm
in
just
some instances, but for the most part,
yeah,
people have their phone
tethered to them.
stuck to them
Yeah, it's
99% of the time,
yeah,
so
no, I get it. I get it. And some people go on vacation, they're like religious about I just don't want to deal with anything else.
agreed.
So I don't know. Like I think what's interesting about this whole ghosting thing is again, I think there is something to how people interact with each other via, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, Twitter, email, texting, all that stuff, dealing with conflict and also the expectation of since you have accessibility to almost any tool to get a buzz back on my phone, you should be getting a buzz back on my phone. So I think it's just two sides to now again, some people are literally gonna take advantage of that of, not communicating because they have other ulterior motives. And sometimes you'll be camping out in a cave and you have no Wi-Fi signal. I don't know.
For all you guys
Satellite
camping,
phone, that works. We should have said rent a satellite phone. We will be able to get a hold of you anywhere you are.
we'll have to make sure we ask if you're camping in caves from now on.
Camping in caves. You always have to ask one more thing. Yeah, I have no idea. So we are going to be waiting with bated breath to see if this guy does, in fact, come back. We will let you guys know. Our client is rather curious of the same answer. I am now curious just because I'm vested in the story, a part of his journey. If he starts, we might have to send him a bottle of Vouv or something or Chandon just to have him
I think that's not gonna
go
it's
away.
gonna be on ice for a while,
It's gonna
so
be on ice. So, all right. Well, that's it for the today's daily 10. We will be back tomorrow. Leave a review. Let us know what your experience has been with somebody who's dropped off the grid. Could be candidate recruiting. Could be a
or maybe
different
you ghosted
perspective.
yourself, it's okay.
If you ghost yourself and you want to, put your hand up, we're okay with that. And then also, if you've had, I'm curious from like actual hiring managers if somebody's fallen off the grid and ghosted a start and the impact to your team because obviously you make planning around that. But yeah, leave us a review on iTunes as well, and we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks.
Bye.